Carol, I just realized this is our final episode of our sixth season.
It is. Are we going to do something special for this final episode of our sixth season?
I mean, I don't know. Aren't we special anyway?
Well, I like to think so, but it really is not up to me to decide. It's up to our listeners to decide if we're special and worth listening to.
I agree. And you know what? I may do a giveaway because I ended up when I went on eBay and filled out all of The Gardener magazine. I found them
Yeah.
all. I ended up with some extras. And then I went to you and I said, do you have all of these? I'm thinking episodes, it's not the right word. All of these individual pieces, the individual magazines. And you
Issues.
said, thank you, issues. And you said, I do. So I probably have six issues. So let's do this. We're going to have listeners comment on the Substack newsletter, and then we're going to pick one of the comments and we will send them the magazines. How's that?
That sounds like a wonderful idea. But before we go into all that, and I'll put it in the newsletter, why don't you get us started on this, the final episode of season 6, but not the final episode. Make no mistake.
No, we're going to keep coming back. I mean, it's fun to talk to each other and it's fun to visit with all of you. Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we talk about veggies, flowers, and all the best dirt. I am Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden an acre and a half out of 7.5 acres out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre and the envy of Dee.
Because it's small and wonderful. We call ourselves Garden Angelus because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. How is your garden? I see you got some stuff done.
I did. On Monday, all the tulips and miscellaneous things went into the ground. Then we got some rain kind of the rest of the day on Monday. So we got some rain Tuesday night. So Wednesday, I planted all the crocuses because the 1.23 inches we got really made the ground really nice and soft and was quite nice. Friday, I trimmed and mowed and picked up more leaves and I put them on the vegetable garden cathedral beds, 2 more beds. But I was a bad girl and I did not weed those beds. I just plunked leaves on them. So, yeah, I also
Who
watered up all my
cares?
house plants. Gave them, looked at each one carefully, make sure there weren't any bugs, disease, or dead leaves. Got that cleaned up.
Cool.
And my poinsettia, gosh almighty. So it's dropping quite a bit of leaves, and I think it needs water almost every other day because it's so root bound in that pot.
Yeah.
And I didn't repot it. I probably should have. I see the slightest color change on some of the top leaves, but it's not really like they're turning to red. It's more like they're fading. So
Uh,
I don't know.
I was so hopeful for it. I think you would
Well,
have to replant
it's
it.
early yet, Dee. It's early.
So put it in a pot with some new soil, Carol.
Well, I might, but the other thing is,
Oh,
so
poinsettia.
the not this weekend, but the previous weekend, I had gone to my nephew's house to plant that one evergreen, and they still had on their front porch, they had taken the gallon milk containers and they put the glow sticks in them and fill them with colored water. No, they don't put colored water. They just put glow sticks in them. And then they paint like the Halloween faces and stuff instead of pumpkins.
Oh, okay.
Cute as can be.
I bet it was cute.
And so I said, oh, I need some gallon containers for my winter sowing. And these were the traditional milk jugs versus the ones I
Uh-huh.
have a smaller base from the water that I get at Costco. So I ended up taking some of those home. And then my nephew called and he brought over a dozen without any, between him and his daughter and now his son, they can give me an endless supply of milk jugs for winter sowing.
Because they drink a lot of milk because they have little kids.
Yes, an endless supply, Dee. So I said, just throw them in the bed of the truck and, I'll deal with them. And some of them still have the Halloween faces on them. But anyway, how about your garden this week?
So if I seem tired today, it's because Bill has not felt good for 2 weeks. And it was because his back was bothering him to an extent where it was really serious. And I took him to the ER on Friday, and he said I could share this. I took him to the ER on Friday because we could not get an MRI done. And so we went to the deal. They took one look at him because he was doubled over in pain. And they said, we're going to get you an MRI. We were going to have to wait till December 4th. And so we waited and we got the MRI to shorten up the story a little bit. And then the surgeon, well, the ER doctor came in and he said, you'll be meeting with a surgeon today. And we were like, what? We didn't expect that, right?
Yeah, they can go quick when they want to.
When they want to, boy, they sure can. And so this young surgeon came in. Have you noticed, Carol, that all the doctors, all the lawyers, all the Indian chiefs, all the police officers, you know how people always used to say, and all the, never mind, that was probably not politically correct. But anyway, have you noticed that they're all children now?
Well, I
They're
wouldn't
all
say they
very
are
young.
children, but I will say that they are generally younger than we are, which is
Oh,
kind of
so
a
much younger.
surprise.
And because you didn't have children, you don't realize how young they are because my children are their age. So I just look
Right.
at them, I go, oh, oh, that guy's like 28 years old. So he came in and he said, hey, I work with Dr. Kakari, and I don't think we can get you in today, but you're going to stay tonight and then we're going to get you in tomorrow. I said, okay, Bill, they're trying to find your room. I'm going to run and get some lunch. I'll be back and go get our Kroger order because all this happened suddenly, right?
Right.
And so I am halfway home, which that hospital is 45 minutes from my house. We call it Big Mercy because we have Little Mercy now too. So I get a phone call from Bill and he goes, hey, they just put me on the schedule. I'm up in like an hour. I was like, what? So I ran home, called my son. He ran up there. I did get back in time. They took Bill back to surgery. They did back surgery on him. He had a disc that had broken off and was impinging his spinal cord.
That
So it was
sounds
a big,
very
it
painful.
was, it was, and it was a very big deal because you can, get paralyzed. So needless to say, I did not do much in my garden, but on the Thursday before, when we hadn't decided what we were going to do, I went ahead and emptied out almost all of my pots on my deck. I am so glad I did that because guess what? I won't have to do it in the spring. And then I moved a bunch of them back so we have two clear lines to get to the bird feeders. And we
Excellent.
always put our bird feeders up right around Thanksgiving. And then we bring them down about Easter. That's when I talk Bill into it. And so one thing I noticed when I was out there, everything was still growing. Everything is very green. We've had that one frost. So I'm waiting to do my bulbs still. And I usually don't plant my bulbs until around Thanksgiving, but I may wait until the week after because it is warm here. It's going to be
It
67 degrees today.
yeah, it's warm-ish here. We had a
Hmm.
frost Friday morning. We had another frost, so still a lot of things are growing out there, but not
Yeah,
as actively, which kind of takes us into our favorites.
it does. But I want to say one more thing. We're recording this on Sunday instead of on Friday. Thank you for that because I was at the hospital.
What did I tell you when you texted me? I said, "Don't
You
worry
said,
about
don't
that.
worry. Yeah,
It'll
we got
happen
it
or it
done though.
won't." Yes, it will.
So tell me about your favorite because your favorite does relate to our updates.
So I was, as I've been mowing, every little whip stitch, there's a little sweet William that's popped up in the spring, and I just left it. It's on the edge of a perennial border. I have no idea when I actually planted sweet Williams like that, but it's been blooming all summer and it's still acting like it's summer out there and it's blooming. It's got like pink and white flowers on it. It's really
Mhm.
pretty. It's a biennial, so it's got one stalk that might be what produced the seed. And I'm like hoping that's the case so that there'll be more. But that sweet William
Right.
still blooming.
Still moving on. There's still quite a few things blooming here, and that'll take us into our flower topic. But my favorite this week is my light pink Thanksgiving cactus. It's one of the ones I didn't fry outside. Don't take those outside. If you live in Oklahoma, they really do not want to be out there. And so this one I didn't, and it's huge and it's beautiful. And I'll put a picture in the newsletter. And I'm probably going to move my pink princess philodendron down to where my cactus is and put my cactus up on my mantle so I can see it every
Yeah.
day.
Enjoy it.
So,
Enjoy it.
question of the week. Oh, and I need to move my amaryllis up there too, because it's the whole thing is blooming like crazy. So,
I saw in last week's newsletter. Yes.
oh no, no, now it's all bloomed out, which is bizarre, but whatever. Okay, question of the week. You got it this week, and I'll ask it and you answer. Okay.
Okay.
Is it okay to plant bulbs with shoots? And by shoots, they mean when the little bulblets come off the side. Is that what
Well,
you're
no,
talking about?
she means like like there's a little green tip showing on
Oh,
your
they've broken open. Yeah.
or there's you notice it
Or-
especially on crocus corms, there's a little tiny shoot sticking out a lot of times. And
Yeah.
so my youngest sister sent me this text on Saturday, and I immediately texted back, "Of course you can." And
Mhm.
that's just very common. And you see that and just very carefully plant it down there and it'll be just fine. Pointy end up, roots down.
Which is true of all bulbs, the pointy end up, roots down, except for there's a few bulbs that it's hard to tell. So you just plant them on your side. So the ones that don't have real pointy up roots, like anemones, for example, they just look like, I don't know, they just look weird. So the reason that happens is because crocus, they they're such early bloomers that
Yes.
they're already trying to break dormancy. So yeah, go on and plant them. They'll get cooled off, they'll calm down.
Yes. Yeah. And
Life
it's like,
goes on.
what is the alternative? You're not going to not plant them.
Well, you'd throw them
So,
away, and that would be terrible. So don't do that. And that holds true of tulips too. Sometimes by the time I get the tulips planted outside, they're starting to just barely break dormancy. I just plant them. They do
you
fine.
just plant them, they'll be calm. She'd also texted me the weekend before with pictures of Osage orange.
Hmm.
And she's like, "What is this fruit?" And I'm like, "It's Osage orange." And I probably, if I had the history, could go back to last fall. She texted me a picture and said, "What is this?" And I said, "Osage orange."
Right. And Osage oranges are often used as decorations this time of year because they do smell good
Uh
and
huh.
they're pretty. I think they're pretty. They're not, nobody eats them.
They're
So they're
poisonous.
both, yeah, they are poisonous. They're bodark trees. And what we talked about last year was how bodark trees are what they used to use a lot for fence posts because they are so, so hard. And they're just great trees. And they think that the name comes from bois d'arc, which is a French word, French two words. And so there you go. That's as much
Very
as I
interesting.
remember right off the top of my head. How about
That's
you do the quote?
that's pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good considering I had no sleep last night because Bill had to get up. You know how it goes.
Every year in November, at the season that follows the hour of the dead, the crowning and majestic hours of autumn, I go to visit the chrysanthemums. They are indeed the most universal, the most diverse of flowers. And that is credited to Maurice Maeterlinck.
And you looked him up, and he has quite the name Maurice Polydor Marie Bernard Maeterlinck.
Born in 1862, died in 1949.
And he was Belgian.
Yes.
So he went through World War II. Bill's in there watching a World War II documentary on what happened in France, which is right by Belgium, by the way.
Yeah.
And I mean nearby. And so just fascinating history. I'm
Yes.
just gonna do an aside. There's a lady that you should look up. Her name is Violette. So Violet, I thought of
Yeah.
you. Violette Szabo, and it's Szabo. She was a French resistance person, but I thought of you because her name was Violette. I want to start a trend where people go back and name their kids things like Violet. What pretty names, right?
Yes. And, within my family, we have a Sophia,
Hmm.
we have an Eleanor.
We have a Madeline, so they are going back to these more traditional names, and I think names like Fleur, Violette, those are beautiful names.
They
All
are,
right, so Mr. Matterlink,
I'm
pretty
sorry,
amazing.
Count Maeterlinck.
Oh, he's Count Menterlink to me.
He,
Count. Yeah.
He got a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1911, and it says, in appreciation of his many-sided literary activities and especially of his dramatic works, which are distinguished by a wealth of imagination and by a poetic fancy, which reveals, sometimes in the guise of a fairy tale, a deep inspiration, while in a mysterious way they appeal to the reader's own feelings and stimulate their own imaginations. I have one last thing to say about Maurice.
Yes.
Later in life, scandal for plagiarism, that he plagiarized somebody. We'll leave it at that because we're
Oops.
going to talk about chrysanthemums.
Oops. Okay, so chrysanthemums. We have talked about them many times, but we decided to talk about them again because they are often the last things to bloom in the garden if you're growing garden mums.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also a great plant to buy in their very rounded shape, which I have 3 of them out front, still looking great. Yours are still looking great.
They look great. I bought mine when the bud was pretty tight. You could barely see
Me
color.
too.
And they're doing wonderfully, marvelously well, and they look wonderful. And they are actually blooming longer in those containers than the ones in the back that just come back every year because mums are perennials. Those started blooming way too early, and you can't slow them down. And so they're pretty much bloomed out. But the ones in containers out front, I mean, if they keep going the way they're going, it'll be a sad thing to pull them out for Christmas decor when they still are showing the beautiful fall colors.
Yeah,
But
kidding. They're beautiful this year. So yay. And then mine will look good for Thanksgiving, which is important to me. So you said, what new things can we say about mums? And you said there's a National Chrysanthemum Society, and they've written a deal on helping you care for your mums since 1944. So that's their motto, right?
right. And by the way, as we record this,
Yeah.
today is day one of their symposium in Las Vegas, Nevada.
What a fun place to have it.
Yes. And so, but here's the interesting thing. So the Chrysanthemum Society, they invite you to create a local chapter. You need 5 members to do so. And I looked up online, and literally there's some chapters on the West Coast, there's some chapters on the East Coast, but the entire middle of the United States is not got any chapters, which is what it is.
Well, and they still do a lot of exhibition mums, both on both coasts.
Oh, yeah.
And our friend Matt Mattis has posted some beautiful stuff on Instagram where he disbudded his mums so that when by disbudding, that means to take off all the little buds. And so he took them off and made a straight stem, and that's how they do them. And then it makes a very big flower, and it's quite a bit of work. And then I got to go to Longwood because I went with the garden bloggers. And at Longwood, we got to see how they shape those mums because they have a huge mum extravaganza at Longwood. Longwood's motto is we do ordinary things extremely well, if I remember right.
Okay.
And mums they consider ordinary, but in Japan and China, mums are a really big deal. And so Longwood has taken that idea and they do the fan displays and they do the spiral displays and then they do a bunch of new stuff. And so people come over from Japan to just see Longwoods. It's like a month long. It's really
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I think it already started and it goes on until they put up Christmas decorations.
Right.
So just so cool. And then you wrote 2 articles about mums.
Yeah, for Family Handyman a couple years ago, I wrote our mums perennials, which I guess is a question because some mums are not perennials
Algorithm.
but because I would say there's 3 types of mums. There's basically garden mums, which you and I are planting. And then I'd subdivide that into like the garden mums you buy at the garden center that are, the nice round ball. And then you just throw them out when you're done. And then we'll talk about some of the others that you can plant in the ground that are very pretty. And then there's what I call florist mums, which would be, in the
The
middle of
big
December,
ones.
you see a blooming white mum, which is very pretty. It's not going to be hardy in your garden. And then the
Probably not.
specialty
Well,
mums,
maybe
like
here.
those specialty mums like Matt Mattis grows that are really very
Mhm.
fancy. A lot of them were used back in the day for corsages and things like that.
Yeah,
But
football mums
football.
for homecoming.
Yep.
I had one, bright yellow.
So anyway,
Because our colors were purple and gold. Now, people in Oklahoma are going to say to you, our gardeners here are going to say almost all of them are perennial here, and a lot of them take their mums and that they've bought as balls and then they put them out in their garden because there's an element of to gardeners that they don't want to waste anything.
Right.
My thing I always tell them is just know that that mum is never going to look the same because it was brought to flower, it was trimmed and trimmed and trimmed. It was made to look that way, fertilized like crazy. So just keep that in mind if you want to grow those. I would suggest, on the other hand, that you grow some of these fun mums that I grow.
Yes, the fun moms. And you know what? I just remembered. I don't know why I didn't think about this. A lot of the mums that I've got in this one container, I actually bought them in July, and they were the mums that the greenhouse had that they were going to put into pots and grow on. And I bought some of those. I think I paid like $4 or $5 a piece, put them in there, and they didn't have any flower buds at the time. They are so big and beautiful. Anyway, that's another way you can do it, like I did.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about the fun mums? Are you
The
ready?
fun mums, well, Sheffield's pink is the famous fun, a lovely pink color. We got a pink thing going this week, don't we, Dee?
And yeah, kind of. We're in the pink. The garden's in the pink. Sheffield is beautiful, and it is an apricot pink. There's one called Hillside Sheffield. I mean, they call it by a bunch of different names, but Sheffield is beautiful, and I grow it everywhere. So, and then I have some a little more unusual. I have Kathy's Rust, which is a rust version of, there's another Kathy's. And then there's Fall Charm, which you'll see that one. That's really a florist mum, I think,
Yeah.
because you'll see that one in the grocery stores, but you can buy it. It does great here. I have Jessica Louise, which is the most beautiful shade of pink. Beautiful. And Emperor of China, which is white. It's kind of pink coming out in bud and then fades to white. That one has a very heavy head and really needs to be staked, even if you cut it back. I didn't stake it this year. I was too busy, and it's kind of lying on the ground right now. And I walk past it and I look at it and I think, poor you. Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the main thing to remember with those type of mums or any mums that you grow in your garden, you need to chop them back for the Chelsea chop.
Yeah. And I would do that. You said in April, and I would do that
Late
in
April, early
late
May.
April, May. And you could actually do another cutback in July if you wanted to.
Yes, because and that'll help them bulk up, and then maybe they won't flop like Emperor of China does. And then I was going to tell you about this weird thing in my garden that we
Okay.
haven't really talked about, you and I. The cucumber beetles were insane this year in Oklahoma. Were they bad up in Indiana?
No, not to my recollection.
Oh my word. Hundreds of them. We also had hundreds of moths, just those little brown moths. I don't know what the deal was, but people were actually writing me and going, what is going on? Because they were getting all over people's mums, and they would just eat the petals of the mums and leave the disc. So the disc looked okay for, it was good for pollinators, but you had no rays, no flora, no
The
petals.
flower part,
Yeah, the flower part.
the petals.
So they look like crap. And several people sprayed theirs with some natural stuff. I did not spray mine. I was doing good to get out there and just do what I needed to get done.
Right.
But I looked at them and I was just like, what is going on? They also attacked all of my fall roses, and they would eat huge holes in them. I mean, when I talk about cucumber beetles, I mean, there were thousands, thousands. I've never
Well,
seen so many.
I can tell you we did not have that. You just wonder if there's a natural predator of cucumber beetles that is in trouble, and that's why the cucumber beetles are prolific.
Yeah, and I haven't gone down a rabbit hole about it because now they're gone pretty much. There's just a few left. But it was happening to everyone, and people who were organic and people who were not organic. So I don't know what's going on, but something was not eating cucumber beetles, and I hate them. So it was really, really hard. Now the moths, on the other hand, people were stressed about them, but I didn't see any caterpillars from them. I just saw the adults. So they may have made it and laid eggs, but as far as I know, they did not cause any problems this fall.
Could be.
There,
Well, I will
there
say
you
on
go.
the insect front, I always get questions about box elder beetles this time of year, those
Yes.
black and red. They don't harm
Yes.
anything. And my garage door
No.
faces south. And so they're always sunning themselves on there. And it's like, just go away, you pest. But they're not hurting anything. Now, I will say about
No.
mums. Here's when people ask, can I plant my mum in the ground? I say, yes, but you
Sure.
had to do it sooner rather than later.
Right.
If you're doing it later, if we're having a really mild fall, what's the harm in trying? So you might
Right.
as well try.
Here, you might as well. You're going to do fine. They're pretty hardy.
Don't cut them back. Let the foliage just die and leave the foliage.
Sure.
Watch them all winter when there's the heaving and heaving out of the soil when the freeze thaw
Mhm.
cycle goes. Push them back
Mhm.
down with your heel.
And that
Uh,
holds true of any perennial that tends to heave, like
it
heucheras.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
the worst. Okay, keep going.
And then in the spring, when you see the new green growth, then go ahead and cut back the old growth. And then do as we said, trim them back in late April, early May, mid May, somewhere in there. Give them a trim back and then give them a little trim back in July, and you will have beautiful flowers in the fall.
You will, because there's just really well, unless the cucumber beetles decide. And you know what? And they didn't eat the doubles. They only ate the singles. They're
Well, they
nasty.
are discriminating cucumber
No,
beetles, no
they're
doubt.
evil. They're evil, evil. All right, you ready?
Yes.
A
No, I
long
will
one.
link. I will link to the two articles I found that I wrote about moms because they're not half bad. Basic
I have
information.
numerous blog posts too. So I can
Okay,
send you one of those if you want me to.
I
I think
would
it's my
definitely want
turn to
to.
write it though, actually.
Whatever suits you, Dee.
We'll figure it out. I think it's my turn, isn't it?
It is your
Anyway,
turn, but if you're
you were just going
busy,
to do it for me in case. Yeah.
yes.
Well, if I have to take Bill back to the dentist, because he also had dental surgery last week. He had a
Poor-
bad week. And he's fine, by the way. He's home, walking with a walker. He's in better shape than he was.
And
So,
you
yay.
mentioned he was watching a World War II
Yeah.
documentary movie.
Yeah. On the French.
Since Veterans Day is tomorrow, maybe he should also watch one from World War One. Just suggesting.
Yeah. I suspect that this is on, he's watching OETA, which is our public television station. I suspect it's on there because it is Veterans Day tomorrow. And I noticed that the Princess of Wales, since we're going to bring that up, the Princess of Wales actually went to a celebration for World War One. She went to
I,
two of them last
I think
week.
they call it a commemoration rather than a celebration.
Yeah, it's not a celebration. And they're all wearing puppies right now,
Yes.
which is
Uh,
a really beautiful thing that they've kept going.
The British
So,
have done very well at keeping that commemoration of the Veterans Day, the Remembrance Day. Do that quote from Vegetables, Dee.
all right, buckle in, everybody. When you finally realize that joy is less fireworks, more firefly, less orchestra, more birdsong, she will come back much more often. For joy will not fight with the fast pace of this life. She dallies not in the shiny or the new. She breathes in the basic, shimmers in the simple, and dances in the daily, to and fro. Joy has been beckoning you for many a year, my friend. You were just too busy doing to see. The very next time joy wraps her quiet warmth around you, as the garden embraces your weary body in its wildness, tip her a nod. You cannot force her to stay, but if you are a gracious host, joy comes back. That's from the poem Joy Comes Back by Donna Ashworth. And Donna Ashworth, Carol looked her up, she is a Scottish author.
Yes, she wrote on her website, and we'll link to it. She has several books out. I write to keep my mindset focused on the light, a survival tactic turned into a passionate purpose. My poetry and quotes are simple, heartfelt, message driven, and hopefully grow straight into the soul. It is my mission to provide words that can be used every day, as well as those moments life hits hardest. She sounds very lovely. I might get one of her books.
And I thought that poem was beautiful, or that
Yes.
section of it was beautiful. All right, vegetables. You decided we were going to talk about celery, and it's because you found it in the, oops, I almost dropped something on the floor to make noise, in the Kitchen Gardener magazine from February, March 2000. And actually, on the cover of this magazine, they show someone covering up celery with garden cloches. And these are really pretty cloches. thing I
Yes.
loved about this magazine was its ability to just make kitchen gardening, to elevate it and make it more beautiful. So, ooh, and I know what we're going to talk about next week in this from this too. So, success with celery on page 25. I have not grown celery. Have you?
I tried it. I think last year the greenhouse had some celery starts. And
Yeah.
so I bought some, but I was negligent in how I grew them. And I just finished reading this article. And so it's all in the subheading D.
It's as simple as rich soil, afternoon shade, and plenty of water. Now, my question is, because I have not read this article, I was busy. And my question is it a cold weather crop?
It is a long crop. And I don't think
I
it
knew it
liked it.
took a long time. Yeah.
Most of our celery, I think, is grown in California. I don't think it likes it really hot. I don't think it likes it really cold. And so she has some suggestions, about the soil. You need good, rich soil loosened up. And then you have to start those seeds early because most of the varieties say 90 to 100 days. And that's generally 90 to 100 days after you've set it out in the garden. So you can do the math on that.
So you
Uh,
would start it indoors under lights and then
yes.
transplant it early mid spring because they have it growing here with peas. It would be
Yes.
hard to make a crop in Oklahoma, but I got it in my CSA last year, and I gotta say it was fabulous.
It's one
Homegrown
of those,
celery is
yes.
amazing. They grew it in a hoop house is how they did it.
Well, celery is one of those things. First of all, it's what they remember the infamous dirty dozen as far as fruits and
It's
vegetables.
definitely there. I always buy organic.
I always buy organic. And the other thing is the difference between the celery I grew, which I will admit did not get very big, but it was a
Mhm.
much, much, much stronger taste than anything you would buy at the store.
Yes, and the plant was really strong. Like the ribs, I
Yes.
remember they were really strong and I really had to peel out those fibers, you know,
But
and but it had a lot of great taste. It was delicious.
it does have this reputation for being a bit difficult to grow. And but knowing that it needs afternoon shade, I do believe that I have dang near the perfect spot to try to grow some next year because
I think you could grow it.
I have an area of the vegetable garden that does get, I think, too much shade. Although
Hmm.
now that I think about it, what's it getting? It's getting shade in the mornings. Have to move it to the other side. Anyway, I might give it a try after reading this article because the other thing is, let's face it, the celery we're buying in the store is that variety Pascal is the variety that everybody
The
buys,
basic one. Hmm.
basic one. And if you buy the seeds and suddenly you've got red stalk,
Choices. Hmm.
yeah, which looks really good. I didn't look up all the seed sources. Red stalk is listed. She has golden plume listed. Florida has a compact variety for smaller ones. And so I thought, I think I've talked myself into trying it.
Right. And she shows in the article where you can break off stems and leave the plant in the ground
Yeah, so you can
for a
harvest a little
while.
bit. Yes. And closely related, and I thought we would talk about it, but I took it off because I didn't have a chance to do research, and maybe we'll talk about it later, is celeriac root,
I knew you were going to
which
bring up celeriac. Yeah.
it's it's supposedly much, much easier to grow. So I don't know.
It's delicious. I love celeriac. Remember when red celery was a gardening craze? I know exactly when it happened. Do you want to know how I know?
You have it listed here that in 2013 somebody offered you seeds for red celery. Hey,
They did.
D.
I know it sounds a little nefarious, but it wasn't. I was at a garden party at Deborah Prinzing's house, and it was during Garden Com. And the reason I remember it is it was when I pitched my book idea to the editor at my publisher. And
So wait a
so,
minute, back up, back up, back up.
Mhm.
So 2013 was Quebec City and you didn't
So it
go.
must have been 2012.
I
Or it
don't know
was at a
when.
garden, maybe it was at a garden blogger thing. Anyway, my publisher was there, and I know it was that year, that 2012, 2013, because I wrote that book. I presented it to her. She asked for a formal, what's that called? Submission. I can't think of the name right now
Pitch
because my pit, yeah, it's the booklet thing that you put
proposal.
together. Proposal. Yes. She asked for a formal proposal. Deborah helped me with it. I sent it in to her, and I had been thinking about that book for years. So I wrote it in like 4 months. And I remember I was literally making Aunt Belle's brown candy on Christmas Eve while I was talking to my editor about changes. It was Kathy Dees. So it was 2013 because my book came out in 2014.
Yes. Very
So
good.
that's when, wherever the heck I was, I know it
You
was
were
in
in
Seattle.
Tucson in 2012.
So that wasn't that party. It was probably the Garden Bloggers thing in Seattle because we were at Deborah's house.
That okay. I believe
And
you.
I also remember I was so charmed by that party because Deborah had gone out and bought the little snake's head fritillary plants.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that was really cool. Anyway, she'd used them for tabletop decorations. Anyway, I digress. But that's when red celery became such a hot item. And several people grew it that year. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of it.
Yes. Now
So then,
I want to say one more thing about celery, and that is in the article she said you need to harden off the seedlings carefully. And it says that if seed catalogs warn that exposing celery seedlings to temperatures below 55 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 10 days can cause bolting. And it
this is
says,
why I don't grow it. It would have been hard to make that happen at my house.
so she
But
said,
I'm impressed they grew it here in the
she said,
CSA.
according to Johnny's guidelines, she moves her celery to a cold frame in early May when there's less frequent cold nights. And then it get towards the latter part of May, that's when they get transplanted out. And so this is, yes. So we will say, if you're going to try celery, our hat is off to you. I am going to try celery again, this time in earnest to try to do it right, to get something bigger than I got before. So we shall see. Now I'll do a quote and we'll talk about our book.
And there's also great recipes in here, which is another thing I love about this magazine.
Well, she has a quote in there that's something about you can't cook without celery. End of story.
Absolutely. It's called part of the Holy Trinity in Louisiana cooking, in Cajun cooking.
So it's celery.
Celery, onions, and peppers, green peppers. That's if you're doing Cajun. If you're doing Creole, it might be garlic, celery, and onion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Creole always has tomato, has much more tomato than Cajun food does.
All right. I'll do a quote. We'll talk about the book. Some books are so familiar that reading them is like being home again. And that's Louisa May Alcott. She needs no introduction or explanation as to who she is.
No, she does not. Okay, so on our bookshelf, we received this wonderful book called Heroines of Horticulture, a celebration of women who shaped North America's gardening heritage by Stephen White. And Stephen is from England.
Yes. And so here's Stefan's biography. He began his career in the corporate world in the UK, eventually making his way to Boston in the United States to study business administration. After his American studies, he bought a van and spent 5 months exploring the U.S., visiting 31 states and seeing more of America than many Americans, instilling a love of the country and region. Then it says, after 45 years as an entrepreneur in the giftware market in England, Stefan immersed himself in his personal passion for the topics of horticulture and history and is now a public speaker and author on those topics, focusing specifically on the subtopic of women in American history. He has recently been elected a member of the Royal Historical Society and speaks to the Royal Horticulture Society in the UK.
So, when are you going to write that book, Carol, about Lost Ladies of Garden Writing? Because now we got a British author writing about American horticulturists.
So what's interesting about his book, I don't know, Dee, but I will tell you this. Not every person in here is an author, but
Right,
many of them are an author. And
right.
so
Some of
I,
these are women who worked in other areas of horticulture
yes.
or discovered plants. They were plant hunters, and it's a great book. And I'm not taking anything away from the book because some of us some Americans don't visit much of their country. You and I have visited a lot of it. We've been very fortunate to be able to do that. So there's some people I'm very familiar with in here, like Edith Wharton.
Yeah,
And Louise, there's Louise, Louise B.B. Wilder. She's
Louise
in
B.
here.
Wilder.
Where she is.
Elizabeth Lawrence is in here. Cynthia Westcott is in here. I I don't see a lot of overlap with authors that I've written about.
Nope. So I think you should definitely
Now,
write your book.
there's Theodosia Burr Shepherd. Now, I read her biography. I think it was written by her daughter. She's a fascinating, weird person.
Oh, there's Mary Walcott.
I know Mary Walcott?
Mary Walcott was an illustrator.
Well, because
She was a botanical watercolor artist and a photographer. I have heard of her before.
yes, and
Very impressive too. I'm sorry I interrupted. Keep going.
no, that's okay. Rachel Carson is in here. The Lucia Crusoe, I've heard of her. Lady Bird Johnson,
Of course she should be. There's a lot of people I haven't heard of in here.
there are. And so this is a lovely book, and I will tell you, here's the description: a celebration and a salute to 100 brave, determined, creative women over the past few centuries who have shaped North America's heritage and landscapes through their horticulture work and contributions. Through tales of invention, creativity, dogged research, innovation, perspiration, and inspiration, spanning from the early 1700s to the mid 1980s, Heroines of Horticulture offers readers insight into 100 influential women who met and overcame obstacles to contribute a horticulture legacy that has shaped the land that surrounds us today in North America. Many of the featured women are unknown or forgotten figures of horticulture history, making this book an overdue opportunity to acknowledge their work and celebrate their achievements that have left a lasting legacy. Poof.
So on page 59, he brings up one of our native women. He brings up Buffalo Bird Woman, which is great because she has been quoted a great deal in interviews, and she was a gardener. And so she was, yes, so she was part of Native American Gardening, Buffalo Bird Woman's Guide to Traditional Methods. And it was published in 2005. And I've read some of the stuff that she's been interviewed because a lot of Native American tribes didn't have writings, but she was interviewed a lot. So, and she was part of the Hidatsa tribe, which is out of North Dakota. I don't know where they originally lived. She lived on the Fort Berthold Reservation. So, very, very cool.
Yeah, it's a cool book.
I mean, he's done a really good job.
He has.
I like your aspect too, because it'll be actually recording women who wrote.
Yes.
So that would be neat. Something different.
Yes. He's got Carolyn Dorman down there in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Friend of Elizabeth Lawrence. Of course, Elizabeth Lawrence is in here. I mentioned Cynthia Westcott. But yeah, there's a ton I've never heard of. And
me too.
This is a
good reference book. It's very detailed.
I wouldn't say it's a reference book.
But it's not a reference book in that it doesn't have footnotes. But if I need to go find out about a woman who's in horticulture quickly, I might go look at that rather than go look at Wikipedia. So technically not a reference, but.
Well, but here's what I would say, how I would use it. I think they further described, and I didn't copy it in here, a coffee table book or book to keep out, because you could just pick it up and just pick a chapter, just pick one and read it. And, you're down a rabbit hole. Like I just flipped to Grace Tabor.
Yeah.
You're down a rabbit hole automatically, and you never know where it'll take you.
But unlike other coffee table books, it's not a big book.
So no, it's not a big book.
It's small.
It's small. I mean,
but thick, small, but thick.
Yes. I like it. I want to give a shout out to our friend Claire Splan, who is associate editor for American Gardener from the American Horticultural Society. She's the one that actually sent me the email that said, "Hey, Carol, have you heard of this book?" And then, thank you to the publisher, Schiffer Publishing. I sent an email and said, would you send me and Dee some copies? And so,
which we've never worked with Shiver, I don't think before.
no,
So
no,
now we've
we're
got
grateful.
another aspect. It was very nice of them to send it.
Yeah. And I think this is one that is a keeper for me. Dee, how about you?
Oh yeah, I'm going to keep it. It has too much information that's helpful.
I really do like it. So anyway, that is Heroines of Horticulture, a celebration of women who shaped North America's gardening heritage by Stephen White. Good to have on the bookshelf.
Okay, ready for the next quote?
I am.
The scent of cinnamon and cloves, round pumpkins and crisp sweet apples. A world turned ruddy in rich shades of orange and gold, puffing chimneys, sweaters, warm drinks, and leaves, gently leaving one home for another autumn. That's by Laura Jaworski, and she describes herself as an author, artist, and lover of all things whimsical.
Yes. And if you go out to her website, which I did, you can get free crochet patterns, at least one for something whimsical. It's kind of fun. I
It
wish I
is
knew how to
fun.
crochet.
I'm amazed at how many people are online who are just doing their own cool thing that we
Yes.
don't know about because,
Yes.
being online is the great mediator. I mean, anybody can go online and they
Yeah.
might be into crocheting.
Or,
I mean, whatever they like to do
all things whimsical.
or gardening. Yeah. Okay. So our dirt this week is I was walking on iFit with Tommy Refs. And I learned all about banana trees, more about banana trees than I ever thought I would want to know.
The first thing, of course, is that bananas aren't trees.
They aren't trees.
It's a large herbaceous flowering plant.
Yes. And it sends up more. In fact, they think of it as a grass and it sends up a new section. And so you harvest bananas from what they call the mother plant. And then a child comes up on the side and the mother dies. And then the child grows up and produces bananas, becomes the mother. And then another segment comes up. And if you harvest it really well, you pull off sections of it and you use these. It's not really well, I guess it is part of the leaves, but it's part of the stems too. I mean, I'm not doing this from a botanical point of view, but you lay down these parts that are old, you cut them off, and that becomes your mulch. And it decomposes and makes the dirt more and more rich. And most bananas that are grown on the Canary Islands, which is what I've been walking, most of those bananas are grown under cover. They're not grown outside. And there's
Interesting.
a couple of reasons for this. They don't want them hurt they don't want the bananas stolen. Bananas are a very expensive crop. They're worth a lot of money. And and they're in great, it's not just cover, they're great big, huge white tents. So if
Uh-huh.
you look on the Canary Islands, if you look with a drone, if you go look at drone footage, there's huge swaths on one side of the island where it's just white. It just looks like white plastic. And that's where all the banana plantations are.
So
Fascinating.
tell me about walking with iFit. So do you have to have a special treadmill to plug into
No,
iFit?
you could put it on your TV and walk with it if you wanted to. Mine is on my treadmill because the treadmill I bought has a screen and I can walk with just the basic programs on the screen, but I purchased iFit and I think it's $100 a year. I purchased a 2-year deal and it probably comes up next September. It always comes up around my birthday and it's my birthday present to me. And with iFit, you're walking with trainers all over the world. So for a while, I was walking with a different trainer, and I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. A very fit guy. And it's funny because I was actually hiking with him because I like to hike more
Uh-huh.
than just walk. And so my treadmill moves up and down with the
That's what
program.
I was going to ask is, if you have the right program, it slows up, speeds up, goes down, and kind of takes you on
Yes.
an actual walk.
Yeah, it feels really good. They also work with Nordic Track, I guess, and they work with bicycles and all kinds of things. So, like, I have some friends who I want to say they have an elliptical. It's not Nordic Track, but it is an elliptical, which, is the movement back and forth of your feet. And so they use iFit too. We didn't know that each of us were doing it. And I bought it during COVID. That's when I
Yeah.
bought it the first time. And I love walking with Tommy. He's taken me all over all over the world. I mean, he's done, sometimes you do city walks, but right now, ever since his cancer diagnosis, he's been doing this Road to Recovery series. And when I first walked with him in Mexico, I was really sick and he was really sick. And so we didn't walk very fast and we did not do hills. But now he's better and I'm better. But one of the things he shared on this particular trip, because he's way up high in elevation, he only has 25% lung capacity because he had lung cancer, a type of lung cancer. But his 25% is like really good because he was an athlete before that. But this is number 6.
So I have an old treadmill and it has iFit, but it doesn't have a screen or anything. So I think that the way it worked is you would plug it in and it
Do it
has
on
like
your
two,
phone.
yeah, it has 2 or 3 programmed walking things where they gradually speed you up and then cool you down. And so
Cool.
I'll have to explore that more to see if I could integrate that somehow.
And iFit also has programs where you lift weights and do all these other things. In fact, there are some programs where you jump off the treadmill, lift weights for a while, or lift your feet way up. I've done some of those too. There's all different kinds of programs. This is not an ad for them. They're pretty pricey, but I just enjoy walking with the trainers and I enjoy being all over the world. And they also run.
And you learn about bananas.
Well, because Tommy is really interested in horticulture, even though I looked him up and went down a rabbit hole about that, where I was trying to figure out why does he know so much about botany? Well, he studies really hard before he goes someplace. His doctorate is in, sports medicine. So there you go.
Cool.
Or
All right.
not sports medicine, sports nutrition or something like that. So that's really cool. I thought it was really neat and fun.
All right.
Why don't you do the next quote?
I will. It's a poem called These I've Loved. These I've loved since I was little, wood to build with or to whittle, wind in the grass and falling rain, first leaves along an April lane, yellow flowers, cloudy weather, river bottom smell, old leather, fields newly plowed, young corn in rows, backcountry roads and cawing crows, stone walls with stiles going over, daisies, Queen Anne's lace and clover, night tunes of crickets, frog songs too, starch cotton cloth, the color blue, bells that ring from white church steeple, friendly dogs and friendly people. And that is by someone named Elizabeth Ellen Long and D.
This one's a
Did-
mystery.
Well, it was. And then, you were taking your time to get ready, which is fine. So I thought, well, who is
Sorry.
Elizabeth Ellen Long? The internet does not have a ready answer, but Carol does. I found this poem was in a 1947 Good Housekeeping book, but you can only see the snippet view. I found out that she published privately 200 copies of a book of poems called These I've Loved. One is in my cart, the only one I could
I
find
bet it is.
online. She wrote thousands of poems and verses, and you just can't find information about her. But I know now that she was born in 1908 in Troy, New York, moved to California with her parents when she was 2. She lived there until her death in 1979. She is also known as Mrs. George Tibbles. She had 2 children. She graduated from Scripps College in California. And now our listeners know more than the internet does. And yes, I looked desperately for a tie-in to gardening so I could include her as a lost lady of garden writing. But alas, I could not find
No,
one.
but she does love April leaves or something. So that's
But
nice.
she has another poem which I thought you might enjoy as well. It's called Autumn Song. These are the days of fallen leaves, the days of hazy weather, smelling of chrysanthemums and gray wood smoke together. These are the nights of nearby stars, the nights of closer moons, when the windy darkness echoes to crickets' farewell tunes.
I like that
I,
one even better.
I did too. So guess what? I did. I'll let you know about that book. Okay, rabbit holes.
So my rabbit hole is about milky spore disease. I've been looking up about it because if you can get rid of, and that's a natural way to get rid of the creatures that the armadillos want to eat so that I don't have an armadillo situation under my house again. Quick update on the armadillo. Bill and I finally figured out a way to make things better because my husband is so smart. He goes, I have an idea. I go, okay. He goes, let's take the tiny DeWalt blower. Let's buy pelleted lime and let's blow it under the house. Because first we washed it under the house and then we caused a leak beyond our stem wall, which leaked into our basement. So now we're going to have to fix the ceiling because we're ding dongs. But it did work. But so don't do that. So instead, I mean, you probably won't have a stem wall, so it wouldn't be an issue. But this time we blew it under and it worked great.
Good.
There's barely a whiff of a smell. So there you go.
That is excellent. Excellent. So my
Yours?
rabbit holes, other than
Good Lord. It's huge.
no, it's not. It's real quick. Elizabeth Ellen Long was,
Okay.
first of all, YouTube was over there showing me Christmas ads from the UK, which is really nice and everything. And so once I watched one all the way through, here come two more. And that's the way algorithm works. So if people are finding that they're not liking what they see on social media, go find the stuff you're interested in: gardening, crocheting,
Yeah,
lovely
go on
poems.
Instagram and search. So there's a
And
little
like
search
those
engine
things,
deal.
share those things. And I guarantee you, Instagram will stop showing you everything else that you're not interacting with. So,
Yes, on my Instagram right now, there's still a little bit of political stuff, but most of it's gone and it's been replaced by beautiful home interiors
yeah,
that are
yeah.
fall and chrysanthemums and poetry and libraries and
Yes, lots
gardens.
of books,
I like these things.
old books. I'm telling you, they were glorious. And so my Instagram, I have been slapping it around and saying, no, no, I want to see
I'm
this.
done.
I want to see plants. I want to see flowers. I want to see beautiful gardens.
Yes.
So also, Dee, I did listen to the unabridged Anne of Green Gables last week. I really loved it.
You called me to tell me how much you loved it.
Yes, and I bought a collector's copy of Anne of Green Gables. It's from Chronicle Books, and it's one's that's got inserts, so you know what the letters would have looked like. Blah blah blah.
So beautiful.
So now that it's a series, I said, well, this winter I'll listen to the whole series. But Dee, I didn't have an audiobook yesterday when I was cleaning. I thought, well, okay, I'll have to go to Anne of Avonlea, the second book. And so
Oh, it's already starting.
it's already starting. Tell me about your garden next week, Dee.
My garden. Oh, I do want to say one more thing. So, how does my Instagram know that I went over to Netflix and watched the documentary about Martha Stewart?
Because Netflix and because it knows
It's
everything
all
about you.
connected.
It's
Isn't it
all
crazy?
connected. Yes,
So it
yes,
took me
yes.
2 nights to watch it. I just want to put a plug out there for it. It is worth watching because you learn what a great businesswoman Martha is. And that's all I'm going to say about it. All right, garden commissions. I will be
Wait, wait,
cutting
wait. I
down
got
the.
one thing. I got something to say about that Martha Stewart Netflix special.
Did you watch it?
No, I don't have Netflix.
Oh, bummer.
But they said that a lot of the books that she put out in the 90s, there were so many copies and everything that they barely sold for anything on eBay. But since the Netflix special has come out, the
I
prices
have
of the
several.
used books have really gone up quite a bit as
Mhm.
people are like, oh, I'll give you $100 for that book that barely could be, given away before the Netflix special
Two
came out.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway, I thought that was interesting. I read somebody had a Substack article about how Martha's books are suddenly hot commodities. So if you got them, folks, hang on to them.
I do. I have
They
them.
might be worth some cash.
I wish I had kept all the Martha Stewart living gardening issues because April was always a gardening issue.
I didn't
I
have
wish
any
I
of
had kept
those.
that. I didn't keep them. I don't know why I didn't keep them, but I didn't. Probably because I had a bunch of little kids running around and I was too busy. But I was a big fan of the original show. She is the original influencer, home influencer. She
Yes,
just
she
is.
was before
And,
social media.
way before. And a lot of then there was anyway, it's worth watching because you really learn lots of different things about how her influence was, how there was backlash, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so in my garden, I'm going to cut down the perennials in the kitchen border to make way for the bulbs. So nobody shoot me because I'm cutting down perennials. I have to because I don't have time to get there. I am helping Bill. He's doing really well, but I've got to help him. So I may not get much more done, except I'm going to keep those indoor plants happy and watered. I'm doing really well at that this year. I water them on Sundays. That's my day. And because when the heat comes on, they dry out faster than they do in summer. I am going to enjoy the change in the seasons and the nice weather. I am also sending my clothes to Insect Shield. I bought their packet. And by the way, that we have an affiliate link for Insect Shield that is DNASH RDR. And if you use it, you get 15% off. But I'm doing their multi-pack because the multi-pack, you can put your own clothes in it. And what I found was I got bit 2 more times, and it was because I might want to run out there and just take a picture. And if I have 2 pair of my jeans or whatever, then I can just tuck them into my boots. I'm not going to get bit. All right. So there's that. And so you can send a whole bunch of clothes. It's $115 for their bulk order, but you can pack a lot in that order. And then let's see. Oh, and I'm getting my Duluth overalls treated because I want to be
Yeah.
able to wear them.
Yeah.
And then let's see, anything else? We should mention again. Well, no, it'll be too late. Okay, go ahead.
So I need to weed, and all the rain that we had. We've had the equivalent of 2 inches in the last 4 or 5 days.
We
So
had an
that'll
inch and
make
a
it
half at
easier.
least.
So I'm going to do some weeding. I might gently pull back those leaves in the vegetable garden beds and just kind of get some of the weeds out that I left. I did notice that one of the front wheels on the mower is not going to make it through another mowing session. So I got to run and buy some new front wheels for my mower, an easy fix. And then I realized the metal arbor that I have holding up the wisteria is supported by a metal post that was already there. And the metal
Mhm.
post is rotting at the bottom and leaning alarmingly. So I need to figure out how to at least stabilize that situation before winter sets in and it all falls over completely, which will be a big mess. So I don't know if I'm just going to put some wood to brace that thing so that it doesn't fall, but I'll just cobble something together and that'll be a week in the garden.
Yeah, mine at the end of my garden, I'm on a hill. It is always trying to go south. And I looked at it the other day when I walked and I was like, huh, you're not looking. So I kind of need to do that too. It's all,
All right.
gardening is all about maintenance.
It is. It is. Well, we want to thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, you get a link to listen to the podcast a day early. And in this week's newsletter, if you comment, you get a chance to win some of the Gardener magazine. And there's several issues.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
We want to thank everyone who has already done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.